Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. All right. Thanks. Well, thank you. So the first time I met Neil Abercrombie was right after the 2000 election. That's not an election on the national level that we feel so great about. Remember what happened? There's that issue in Florida, Bush v. Gore. And after I was elected that year, I went back, it was before I was sworn in, and we went to a caucus meeting of all the House Democrats. We were down in a basement, a windowless basement room in the Capitol, and people were kind of down. And it was pretty quiet. And then this guy gets up in the back of the room when it's open for members to speak, because they have microphones out on the floor. And I hear this booming voice talking about how we got to get our act together and get going again, and it was Neil Abercrombie. And I like to tell that as the first time I met him, because when everyone else was sitting there sort of crying in their beer, Neil was ticked off, quite frankly, and motivated to change things and do better. You know, in the darkest moment right after that election, when people were feeling bad, there's one guy who stood up in our caucus and said, you know, let's stop wimping around here. And I immediately said, this is a guy who cares about his job, and he cares about Democrats. And it was such a pleasure to work with him for 10 years. We overlapped in Congress. And I remember when he told us he was going to run for governor, how a lot of Democrats in the House, we obviously wish him well and wanted him to follow whatever he wanted to do, but you know, you hate to see your friends go. Not just friends on a personal level, but also someone who would stand up and say often what needed to be said in our caucus meetings when no one else would. Neil's the kind of guy who you never knew, I mean, you never had to question about knowing exactly what he thought and exactly what he believes. Sometimes unfortunately, as he just said. No, I have to tell you this. I remember going, the second story I'm going to tell on him is the Transport Workers Union had an event where they brought a bunch of folks in from around the country, and they rented a room in one of the House office buildings, and they invited different members of Congress to come in and speak before them. I had the very unenviable position of following Neil Abercrombie, because Neil got up in front of that group and he had them going. And he was definitely in good form in terms of his speech that day, but then he saw me in the audience. And I didn't know how well, this was early in my career, I didn't know how well Neil knew me. And Neil went out of his way, he sort of took it upon himself to introduce me to the group. And he talked about this guy in Utah who somehow wins as a Democrat. And he was genuine in wanting to make sure everyone in the room knew that that he valued our relationship, and that's another thing I'm never going to forget. Neil Abercrombie now serves as governor of Hawaii. I remember him saying when he made the decision to run for governor, I get to go home. And I thought that speaks volumes about him again. As much as he's been in Congress, I think he believes in his state, he believes in his constituents. It's not easy being a governor right now. Budgets are tight. I'm sure he's dealing with all kinds of challenging issues, but I suspect he's loving every minute of it. So it is with a great deal of pride and honor that I introduce to you our keynote speaker, my good friend, Governor Neil Abercrombie.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. So good of you to come.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you very much, Jim. Aloha! Oh, isn't that great? Oh, and I'm looking around now to see all the football players from Hawaii are going to Utah State, Brigham Young. Believe me, I don't know why I agreed to do this. You know. Now I know a lot of you are out there. They're saying I thought he was going to introduce the governor of Hawaii, and he doesn't look anything like Don Ho. Well, I'm Hawaii's answer to affirmative action. How do you like that? Now, let's see. I'm here talking to the Utah Democratic Party. Do I have that right? That means I'm talking to people who are going to be winners. When Jim says that I introduced him to the Transport Workers Union, that's true. Because I wanted to make sure that they understood that when it's easy, it's always easy. But when it's hard, that's when you start figuring out who really means it. Now, Jim is a very prominent member, and in fact, his leadership was recognized early on in what's called the Blue Dog Democrats. Now, the Blue Dog Democrats are people who are Democrats that get elected where they say they can't elect any Democrats. In other words, they've got that struggle to deal with. In some respects, it could be said it was easy for me. You got categories out there, blue dog Democrats, yellow dog Democrats, whatever kind of designation you want to put out there. I'd be probably in that category, progressive, labor, Democrat. I've been called everything else, communist, hippie, beatnik, you name it. So when it's easy for somebody, that's no big deal. So I have always had the most tremendous respect for Jim Matheson and the Blue Dog Democrats because we understood that we had to put people first. We understood that we had to swim in the water we were in. So I was very proud to be a deputy dog among the Blue Dog Democrats. Everybody would be saying, what's Abercrombie? What's he doing there with Matheson and Tanner and all those Blue Dog Democrats? And I was saying to them, and this made all the difference in the world, in the progress we were able to make on behalf of people, defending Social Security, seeing to it that we were going to get health care for all, getting jobs out there for Workforce America, the people that are the rock-solid foundation of freedom in this country. Seeing to it that that happened, we had a working majority at that time in the Congress because of people like Jim Matheson, because of the Blue Dog Democrats. I had no trouble making common cause across so-called ideological lines in the Democratic Party because we had that common foundation and interest of reaching out to one another. Our diversity in the Democratic Party is what should define us and not divide us. I make that point so strenuously the microphone jumps right off the podium. It's going to define us, and it's not going to divide us. You see the division coming in the other party. That's what's happening right now. You've got the extremes out there that need to be pointed out in no uncertain terms. We don't need to defend anything. Utah Democrats, Democrats all across the country are going on offense, and they're going on offense in Utah starting today. We see government paralyzed and in confrontation all across the country. In the freest country on the face of the earth, in the history of the planet, it is a shame. We should be ashamed of ourselves that we have this kind of confrontation going on in Washington today. Now, you take somebody that wants a good meal to eat. You go to a restaurant. You want somebody in that restaurant that loves serving food, that loves being in the restaurant business. They can't wait to see that you get the satisfaction that you're looking for. You want to get your car serviced. You go to a service station with somebody that wants to make sure you're safe and you're sound and you're ready to go in that car. You don't go to somebody that hates automobiles. Now, why in the hell should you elect somebody that says they hate government? We want a government that works and a people that are dedicated to it. This is the United States of America, and the United States of America government is the people of the United States of America. We're going to have a government that works. We're going to have a government that reaches out. We're going to put people to work. We're going to see that they earn an honest living. We're going to see that they work an honest living for the work that they do. Not taking money the way these hedge fund operators did, the way they came in and made money on the transactions. The people that took us down, the same people who say they're too overregulated today are the same people that took this economy down and put us in the position that we're in. You don't have to go any further than front page of the Salt Lake City Tribune. Is that right? Now, I don't know what the political affiliation of the folks are that own that newspaper. I don't know if it's one of these big chains. Maybe Rupert Murdoch owns it, for all I know, for the time being. Maybe he can do community service out here in Utah. What do you think? We could do that. I don't know, but just look at the front page today. I make a practice of doing that if I go someplace. Pick up the newspaper, see what's going on around there. Well, you just had a road collapse here. It was right on the front page. I'm sorry. I think there was some tragic circumstances associated with a terrible accident. Now, that's where government has to come in. That's what you're going to do. That road has to be fixed. That road should have been inspected. That road needs to be taken good care of. That has to be done by the collective effort of a people who are looking out for one another on a community basis. I mean, if there's anybody that should know about working on a community basis, working in concert with one another, it's people in Utah. I've seen all the stories and read all the stories about pioneering efforts and so on. That wasn't an individual enterprise. None of that was an individual enterprise. That was a collective enterprise by people working together in a spirit of what we call in Hawaii lokahi, community, working together, kokua, help one another, reach out to one another. That's what makes us a free people. That's what makes democracy work. That's what Democrats are all about, is seeing to it that we're not on our own. We're in this together. In Hawaii, we talk about all being in the canoe. We all put our paddles in the water and pull together. If you don't do that, you can't reach the shore. You're going to go in circles. Everybody has to make their contribution. Everybody does their share. Everybody is going to move forward with the Democratic Party, whether it's here, whether it's any place across the country, when we put people first. And that's what Utah is going to do. That's what this country is going to do. And that's what's going to win this election in 2012. Guaranteed. Now, people say I read here that the government isn't working. I was some of the other representatives, and in fact, I see in the other party right now they're going at each other. You got senators and representatives in this state just going at each other, each saying how bad a job the other person's doing. Well, they're all Republicans as far as I could tell. I looked. I read in the paper. It was in the Salt Lake paper. It must be true. Well, if the government is so bad and they've been running the governor so long, I suggest that if you want to see what's wrong with government, tell them to take a good look in the mirror and turn around and get with the Democratic Party. Now, this is a question of timing. There is no question about that this is a question of timing. You take the so-called debt crisis that's taking place right now. Well, who caused that debt crisis? Who was the one that took productive enterprise, the kind of thing that we were doing, the kind of investments that we were making back in the 1990s before Jim came to the Congress, when we had prosperity in this country? When's the last time we had a surplus in the state? When did we have a surplus in Social Security? When did we have a surplus in the Medicaid Trust Fund? When were we talking about actually paying off the national debt, actually having an argument about paying off the national debt? That's when the Democrats were in charge, when Bill Clinton was in charge, and that's when we were doing that. That's when we had fair taxation and good investment in this country. It's not a matter of raising taxes. People don't mind paying taxes when they get value received for the tax dollar they're putting out there. People don't like being made suckers of. That's what they resent. They resent paying their taxes when they're being made suckers of, when they're being taken advantage of. When somebody is out there and it is not an investment in anything, it's the protection of unwarranted protection of wealth as opposed to the investment of the tax dollar in the welfare of the people of the nation. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. When they talk about it's your tax, this is an investment. They say we want to decrease spending. They want to decrease spending except for the subsidies that they get for their particular industries. And the subsidies that they get and the tax advantages that they get on income that they earn that they don't even want to call income. They're so ashamed of it they don't even call it income. Because we know the steel workers, whoever it is, can't wait to pay their taxes, but you got to have a job to pay those taxes. And if you've got that job, then you're not on an unemployment check. We don't want people cashing unemployment checks. We want them cashing paychecks for the work that they're doing. Now, if you take that road out there, that road that collapsed out there, that road needs to be fixed. We've got infrastructure that needs to be fixed all across this country. We've got educational facilities, medical facilities that need to be taken care of, that need to be brought into the forefront in terms of an investment that's being made. And that's the way we should look at it. When Franklin Roosevelt and the Democratic Party put this country back to work during the last recession, depression, they put people back to work. I can tell you that's what we're doing out in Hawaii. We're doing it right now. I'm taking the public works projects approach that Franklin Roosevelt used, and I'm putting them to work right now because there's social utility to that. People 10, 20, 30, and 40 years from now will be enjoying the benefits of that. And that's why you pay it. That's why you borrow the money to invest in infrastructure that is for the people, not to borrow money on margin for stocks that you don't even own so that you can pocket money yourself at the expense of the public interest. We're going to invest in America, and we're going to make government work, and the Democratic Party is going to lead the charge to get it done. We want clean energy. We want clean energy because that's what's going to help this nation survive. I can speak on it with some authority. We import virtually all of our energy. 96% of all the energy in Hawaii has to come from imported oil. That means carbon-based fuel. And international oil speculators and cartels control the very heart and destiny of us. And we've got solar, we've got wind, we've got ocean technology, we've got geothermal, we've got the most diverse possibility, biofuels. In our previous agricultural lands, I got my pineapple tie. As close as you'll find a pineapple today is on my tie out in Hawaii. Why? Because they got wage slavery in the rest of the world. We were once the most productive sugar-oriented sugar industry in the world. More sugar per acre than anybody else in the world. You're supposed to reward productivity, aren't you? Isn't that the mantra that's said by the other side all the time when they're urging you to work, when they're urging you to sacrifice, when they're urging you to take less than what you should get for your labor? We had the most productive people on the face of the earth in agriculture in Hawaii. Why did it go under? Because of wage slavery in the rest of the world. That's what happened when you're paying somebody $1 a month, $1 a day, when families are starving and when it doesn't matter how productive they are because they got wage slaves to be able to produce food. We need food security and we need energy security in this country. We have to invest in it, and that means invest in our own people. Every dollar that leaves this country to go to the oil cartels is a dollar we can't invest in our own people, and we got to change that direction. You got companies that are parking their profits overseas right now and not investing in America. You ask those folks about that. You ask that, are they willing to invest in America? That's what we're talking about. That's the area we're going. Education, early childhood education, 0 to 5. You got a child that comes into the first grade that is not already prepared to be in the first grade. That child falls behind right then and there. That's an investment. That's an investment in ourselves. Prenatal care, postnatal care. When I started running for governor, to the time right now, we've added 18,000 children to our Medicaid list. 18,000 children. I'm sure you've got the equivalent in Utah right here going on right now. Almost 1 in 4 people right now are on Medicaid. Why? Because you've got insurance companies out there that are telling you, you talk about individual choice. What choice do you have when you've got to go to a clerk halfway across the country, if not in some foreign country, in a call center telling you whether you're going to be able to get the medical care that you deserve and that you should have. Now that's why we got to have that intervention. That's why we've got to be there. That's why we've got to see to it that government is responsive to people. We need, if we've got to have a strong economy, then we have to have a government that's going to see to it that strong economy is backed up. Every person is worthy of their labor. We cannot have a situation where we have wage slavery and expect to have general prosperity. Because what's going to happen under those circumstances if we do not pay for the labor that is out there and deserves to have not just a living wage, not just a working wage, but a wage worthy of the investment we're making in them? We're going to lose the middle class. The middle class is the one that's under the pressure right now. We're going to have an overclass and an underclass with the middle class driven to the margins. And your children and your grandchildren, some of those kids sitting there right now saying, when's that man going to be finished so we can get to lunch? Right now, they're saying, that's the one it's all about. These children over here, they're sitting right here, utterly, totally, completely dependent on the judgment and the decisions that are being made by the adults in this room and the adults across this country right now. If we're going to have energy independence in this country, if we're going to have environmental sustainability, if we're going to have food security in this country, if we're going to have an economy worthy of the name that doesn't end up with real estate speculators owning everything and our kids not having a future, then by God, we've got to have the Democratic Party come back in there and lead that investment in our own people. So I'm saying to you right now, this is our opportunity. Let's go on offense. Let's go on offense all across the country. I know that not everybody in Utah voted for Barack Obama. I know that it's difficult for Democrats to make a case when somebody else who's deliberately trying to undermine the President of the United States. I can say from Jim's point of view, I can say from mine. I've served under Democratic presidents. I've served under Republican presidents. I came to the Congress at the time that Ronald Reagan was president. I've been through the two Bushes, Ronald Reagan, and the Democratic presidents. Some of you may know that I knew the president's mother and father, that we went to school together in Hawaii in 1960. And I can tell you for a flat fact that he was born August 4th, 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii. And I can tell you this, it is one thing to have a difference. It is one thing to have a difference with the president or anybody else in elected office as to what you're doing. But when you deliberately try to undermine that office, when you deliberately attack the president of the United States in the most personal terms, when you deliberately undermine the capacity of the president to do his or her job, then that's something that I think needs to be brought to the forefront. I think you need to stand up and say so. So that's not a question. I understand that the president is not going to have the easiest time here in 2012. But I can tell you this, that the Democratic Party in Utah can take the lead by going on offense to say that we are going to invest in ourselves. We are going to have a government that works. We're going to look at the problems as they are. And regardless of whether you're Democrat or whether you're Republican, you cannot let ideology stand in the way of coming to the conclusions and reaching the solutions that we need to have to make not just government work, but the United States of America work. And the Utah Democratic Party can lead that charge. Let's go on offense. Let's win. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mahalo nui.